Well, La Pointe Courte is her first film, 1954. Even her mother gave her some money to do this film. All the guys of the Cahiers du Cinéma magazine really did not like the film because they didn't like to have the fact that a woman, you know, years before them could do a film with a lot of liberty. And she was not going to the Cinémathèque every afternoon like them, but she did a film, so they were kind of annoyed, I think, a little bit. Well, Cleo from 5 to 7 is really the film of, you know, of Agnès that is very well known all over the planet. The story of what she's telling about this woman, which is beautiful and that only lives by the eyes of the others, by the eyes of the man looking at her like a sex object, like an object, like a beautiful woman. And suddenly she realized that maybe this is not her life. And suddenly she wants to look at people. She wants to decide of her life. The Bonheur is a very singular film because she did it in '64, and at that period, you know, to direct a film about a story of the point of view finally of a man being happy in his family life and suddenly being in love with another woman and thinking that maybe he could love the two of them. Should we stay in the couple and never have a love affair? You know, what is happiness in a couple? And I think it's a film that the young audience should look. This film is totally wild. I think it's a kind of a documentary about 1968 in Los Angeles. America was different in that period than Europe, you know, with the power of television and the politics. And in the same time, this little liberty of ménage à trois. I can tell you that the shooting was wild. You know, like Agnès said, I don't need to smoke because they smoke, I get on the set, I'm high. So, yes, it's fun to look at it. You know, my mother had my brother, Mathieu Demy, in '72, and she really wanted to film, but she didn't want to go away. So that's how Daguerreotypes project came through. I think it's interesting because you realize, you know, how a street can change on 30 years, 40 years, and all those little shops went away. The question she asking to those anonymous person of those shops is, do you remember your dreams? And I love that. And some of the answers are wonderful. I love this film because this film is so fresh on feminism, having children or not, being in a couple or not, being free or not, what is freedom? And when she says, Agnès was always saying, you know, some of the words I want to say in the film about feminism, if I don't put them on music, the men are going to be wild. You know, they won't even listen to it. So I need to put music and do songs so it will be a little bit softer, but I'm going to say the things. I hope, you know, in the retrospective at the Lincoln Center that this film, young generation will come and see it. Mur Murs is really a documentary that when Agnès did it, she didn't realize that this documentary would be so important now, because, you know, half of the mural, or maybe more than half of the mural, have disappeared. So when she did this in '81, it was really, suddenly she was, you know, very interested with all those, you know, artists. It's a kind of a, I say, documentary really showing what's happened on those walls, you know, in certain parts of Los Angeles where, you know, they had the gang, between the gang, and they would speak to each other by the walls. Documenteur is maybe the only personal film of Agnès. It was a moment of her life where I think she was very sad of being separated from Jacques Demy, and it's maybe the only film where she really shows how you feel when you're not loved anymore by the person you love. Vagabond is beautiful. I mean, the structure of the film is very interesting, and what Agnès did with Sandrine together, I mean, it's incredible. You know, Sandrine, it was her second film or, you know, third film, and she was 17, and she was so courageous of that. But it was tough on the shooting, and they were cold, they didn't have enough money, it was difficult to do, but it was the only film of her career that did money. I mean, little money, but did money. That's the gift she gave to Jacques. You know, but Jacques never saw the film. He was always telling us about his childhood. In this film, it's incredible. She put 3 narrations. She put the fiction of Jacques' childhood. She put extract of his own film that was where he was inspired by his own childhood, and then she filmed Jacques. And in a way, I think this film shows how very young you can have a desire of doing something when you're an adult, and you can do it. The city of Rochefort called Agnès and saying, you know, we're going to do a kind of an anniversary of the 25 years of the shooting of Les Demoiselles de Rochefort. And she thought, okay, you know, it's a little, you go to those things, but it's always a little bit boring. She received, you know, at the office, like a lot of drawings of kids with the twins. And suddenly she realized that for this city, this shooting was very important. So it's a little postcard. Well, the world of Jacques Demy is a kind of a documentary that, you know, Agnès did after his death. To have right away some people talking about him and talking about, you know, their collaboration with Jacques. But it's more a formal documentaire. You know, it's not, usually she's more free with documentaries. You know, she goes around the subject. I think this film is more, you know, like kind of normal documentary to have those testimonies. Well, The Gleaners and I it's just a little miracle because, you know, she discovered the digital camera, and she was like a teenager, you know, looking at that man on the market eating the garbage, gave her the idea to go digging this and meeting people. And after the film, she received so much, you know, package with potatoes and gift and letters. The Beaches of Agnès is a very delicate film because it's not an autobiography. It's how you can speak about, you know, your family, your life and your film in a very light way. So at the beginning, it started with another project. In fact, it was a kind of a documentary on her. And she thought, well, why shouldn't I do a documentary about my life? To do a project together when you have more than 50 years of difference shows that if you speak, you know, a language of art, if you are open-minded to think that the person in front of you is not just an old woman, it's wonderful. It's a very humanist film. I think this film, Varda by Agnès, is not only for cinephiles and for students of cinema. I think it's more nearly education by the image. I mean, it's even for people who don't know Agnès Varda's film, you know. It just gives you a little bit of taste, you know, of what is cinema, and maybe a little reflection of how you conceive a film, you know, how you do a film.